look at some of the matchups that, could decide the game. And right now, our guy Hunt Palmer has an article up, 3 matchups to watch, LSU at Clemson on LouisianaSports.net. Now for him, he's got the Clemson defensive line versus the LSU offensive line. All right, it's one of the big matchups everybody's going to be paying attention to. He's got the Clemson receivers versus the LSU defensive backs. Certainly now with the A.J. Halsey news, that maybe even be at the top of the list. And then special teams was the last one there. And for special teams in LSU right now, I mean, the returners that they have, and look, we could talk kicker and punter and stuff. I'm talking about the return game. LSU has got, Varian Brown, they got Xavion Thomas, A.J. Anderson returned to kick for a touchdown a year ago. I mean, you've got plenty of options there, so certainly going to favor LSU in that matchup. But if I threw that question to you, if I said, all right, position versus position, here versus there, where are you going?
I got 2 that I'm looking at, and it's not – one of them is not position versus position. It's coach versus coach.
Okay.
It's Blake Baker.
Yep.
How is that chess game?
So Blake Baker versus Garrett Riley.
Yeah, so how is that chess game going to go between these 2 coaches? Of course, Blake Baker. We did a lot last year. Last season – LSU's defense, some would say it overachieved based on the talent levels that it had from top to bottom on the defense. Now we have filled those holes. And, of course, I know that we are going to be missing one of our starting safeties for the first half. But how is that the Clemson Tigers have a Heisman candidate quarterback who is deadly with his feet, can be, and deadly and accurate passer. So how can we get that guy moving east-west instead of north and south? How is Blake Baker's scheme? How is he going to use Harold Perkins? How can he get him in a position to affect the game? And so I'm just really curious how that's going to play out, because I've watched film of Clemson, and I've seen games where they are explosive. Then I've seen games where they struggled. So can Blake Baker kind of pick out what those teams did last year to make Cade Klubnik feel uncomfortable, to make them struggle on third downs? Can he figure out what the game plan is to do that? So that is something I'm really curious. How are we going to use Harold Perkins, and how is Blake Baker going to scheme up this Clemson offense? Because what we see tomorrow is going to paint a pretty big picture for the rest of the season, because of the offenses and the quarterbacks that we'll face that are kind of built in that same mold as Cade Klubnik. They can throw, but they are also very deadly with their feet. The next matchup that I'm looking at tomorrow is the LSU running game. Can we improve from last year? And it won't be hard. It's not going to be hard to improve from the running game from 2024. So schematically, what are we doing? Are we being creative in the running game? Are our offensive linemen exploding off the ball? Are they moving their man back? Are they moving him backwards? Or are we going backwards? Is there going to be daylight and holes that our running backs can use vision and not have get contacted at the line of scrimmage every single time and have to fight for 1, 2, 2.5 yards on first down? Can we stay on schedule with the running game? Because if the running game can be at least dangerous, it doesn't have to be the best running game in the country, because you do have an incredible passing game. But if it can at least be respectable, if we can at least stay on schedule on down and distance, and if we can at least threaten the defense that we can pick up 3, 4, 5 yards running the ball consistently, then Garrett Nussmeier has an opportunity to go on one of these incredible seasons and go on one of these runs that is going to be one of the best passing seasons in LSU history. But it all starts with the running game. If we're going to rely on Garrett to throw 50, 60 times a game, look out.
Yeah. I agree with the running game. It's got to go up. It's got to be more diverse. It's got to be something that teams respect. You can't just sit Garrett Nussmeier back there and just every single time the defense knows exactly where the spot is, right? And he's just sitting there and they know what they can rush to. How do you do that? You slow them down. You run the football, play action pass. They've got the running back to do it in Caden Durham. We'll see if the offensive line will be able to hold up their end of the bargain. But it's got to be more diversity. It's got to be more than just inside zone. It's got to be outside zone. It's got to be power. It's got to be counter. It's got to be duo. It's got to be all these things that we talk about. hey, get on the edge, run, stretch, lead, whatever you got to do. Get the ball to Caden Durham with an opportunity and with something that is more than just one singular style of run play. So, that's my big key to the run game is diversity in the run game. As far as, matchups, I mean, we talk about the Clemson defensive line versus the LSU offensive line. What about the LSU defensive line going against the Clemson offensive line? Their offensive line is not full of world beaters. It's not full of first-round picks. I mean, it is a unit that certainly has had tough times in the past. And if this conversation was last year, I'd say it doesn't really matter. But LSU has done a couple of things. They've added players through the portal on their defensive front. They've got a player back from injury. And also those young guys that were forced to play as true freshmen last year are now going into their sophomore season. So you bring in Jack Pyburn from Florida. You bring in Patrick Payton from Florida State. You go get Butler from Nebraska. You go get Bernard Gooden from South Florida. Okay, that's who you bring in. You get Jacobian Guillory back from injury. Gabe Relaford, Dominic McKinley, Ahmad Bro, all those players, now they've been through the fire. They understand what it is. They all had to play a ton as true freshmen. This defensive line room is so much more talented than it was a year ago. A year ago, it was held together with duct tape and super glue. Now you've got some Jimmies, you've got some Joes, and oh yeah, you've got one of the most intense human beings I've ever been around in Kyle Williams coaching them every single day. If anybody's going to expect and ask you for your very best every single day, it is Kyle Williams. We're not talking enough about this defensive line going against that offensive line. And I understand why we're talking about the other. I get that. I understand the question. Clemson's got 2 All-Americans. You've got 4 new starters. But if you flip it, Clemson should be asking themselves about LSU's defensive line, where that was not a question a year ago.
Yeah, I like how we keep bringing Kyle Williams up when we talk about defensive line, because we know this line is going to be very well coached. And going into a game, playing a quarterback like Klubnik, you have to be so buttoned up with not making a mental error as a defensive lineman. And what I mean by mental error is you always have to be gap sound when you're rushing the quarterback. We talked yesterday about mistakes that teams made last year playing Cade Klubnik. They rushed north and south, all 4 of them. And when you do that, you create these huge windows of opportunity for a quarterback to not only see daylight, but to understand exactly what your body momentum is and the speed of which you're going up the field. So he knows which gaps I can run in. It just clears the way. It makes it so easy. So when you play a running quarterback like this that can beat you and can make explosive plays, you have to have gap integrity. You have to rush, not necessarily north-south all the time, not with everybody at least. You have to do a little bit of east-west as well. And you got to keep them in the pocket. You got to close those gaps. The distance between the center and the guard and the tackle, you need to try to tighten that up as much as you can. You don't want 3, 4, 5 feet in between each guy, because that makes it really easy for a quarterback to see where his window of opportunity is to beat the defense with his feet. So, yeah, defensive line. I mean, I'm excited to see what kind of juice Jack Pyburn brings to this pass rush, and what kind of juice he brings just that defensive line. So I expect that defense to, go out there. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of confidence, I feel like, coming out of training camp with that defense. Excited to see how they come out and play with their hair on fire, man. They're going to be playing fast, and hopefully they make some plays, but just going to be a battle of 2 really, really good teams. So I'm excited for this opening game. I wouldn't want it any other way. I wouldn't want to be going out and playing some really small
Central
school.
Arkansas.
Wouldn't want to be playing Central Arkansas. Did you just take a swipe at Missouri?
That's what they played yesterday.
I know. That's your team, though.
Georgia's playing Marshall.
Hate to be Missouri
and
right
then
now.
Austin P.
Lame.
Yeah, give me a game that I'm sitting here and I've thought about for 7 months.
Been better than Penn State. They play
Penn
like
State's
7.
got Nevada, FIU, and Villanova their first 3 games.
Beta moves, Penn State.
That's their non-con games, guys.
You know what? Why don't you be a man and schedule Clemson on the road? That's it.
That's it.
Yep, that's it.